Did you know your Miata has 13 features that most owners never discover across the entire life of the car? Sitting in the car you already own, already paid for, and have been driving without them activated since day one. Today, every hidden feature gets revealed with exact activation steps and the dealer profit motive behind each omission. Stay until the end. Number 1 is the feature that Miata track day instructors have been quietly using for years to protect engines past 200,000 miles, while the dealer profits from owners who never find it. Let us get into it. Number 13, the torque vectoring. Setting that changes how the Miata corners forever. You are driving your favorite canyon road on a Saturday morning. You turn into a familiar corner. The front end pushes slightly wider than you want. You lift off the throttle a fraction to tighten the line. You have been doing this on every corner for 2 years. You have been compensating for a handling characteristic that a single settings change eliminates permanently. Access the vehicle dynamics menu through the infotainment system. Navigate to the torque vectoring control settings. Select the sport calibration. Drive your familiar canyon road. The next feature is one that protects the soft top from the most common and most expensive damage pattern that Miata owners experience, and that most owners pay between $150 and $300 to repair when it is entirely preventable. Number 12, the soft top tension adjustment that prevents premature seal failure. You lower the top on a warm evening. You raise it before a rain shower the next morning. You notice a small gap at the driver's side header rail where the top meets the windshield frame. Water enters through the gap during the next rain event. It soaks the driver's seat and the footwell carpet. The dealer quotes $180 to inspect and adjust the soft top tension and seal contact. The adjustment takes 12 minutes. It requires no tools beyond what comes in the Miata's own toolkit. The Miata ND soft top uses a manual latching system at the header rail with 2 adjustment points per side that control the tension and contact pressure of the weather strip against the windshield frame. These adjustment points are accessible without removing any trim or panels. The adjustment procedure is documented in the Miata owner's manual in the convertible top section on page 104. Most Miata owners have never opened that section. The dealer that charges $180 for the adjustment performs it by accessing the same adjustment points with the same accessible hardware. The labor charge reflects the time invested in a procedure the owner's manual teaches for free. If you are discovering features and adjustments that your dealer has been charging to perform for years, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. A Miata Sport owner from Portland named Sarah paid $180 for a soft top tension adjustment at 31,000 miles after a leak developed at the header rail. Her service advisor did not mention the adjustment procedure was documented in her owner's manual. He did not mention that performing the adjustment quarterly prevents the gap from developing in the first place. He booked her next appointment. Sarah now performs the quarterly adjustment herself. She has not returned for a soft top service in 2 years. The next feature changes how the Miata's engine sounds from inside the cabin, and most owners have driven past this setting for years, assuming what they hear is simply what the car sounds like. Number 11, the active sound. Enhancement calibration that unleashes the SkyActiv G sound. You start the Miata, you pull out of the driveway. The engine sounds pleasant but subdued through the cabin. You assume this is simply what a 4-cylinder roadster sounds like. You are hearing the factory default active sound enhancement calibration. The Miata's sound system includes an active sound enhancement feature that pipes engineered engine sound through the audio speakers to supplement the acoustic sound entering the cabin. At the factory default calibration, the enhancement level is set conservatively to avoid overwhelming drivers who prefer a quieter cabin experience. The maximum calibration level produces a dramatically more engaging engine soundtrack at every throttle input without increasing actual exhaust noise outside the vehicle. Access the audio settings menu. Navigate to the sound enhancement section. Increase the enhancement level from the factory default to the maximum available setting. Drive with the audio system volume at 0 on your next spirited drive. The engine soundtrack you hear is the Miata experience the engineers designed for the sport calibration that most owners never find. The aftermarket exhaust industry that sells $350 products to Miata owners for sound improvement has a clear financial interest in that setting remaining undiscovered. The next feature is one that most Miata owners have triggered accidentally and dismissed as a glitch, and that is providing protection they are not aware of on every drive. Number 10, the dynamic stability control sport mode. That most owners never configure. You take your Miata to an autocross event. You disable the stability control completely because every forum post says that is the correct approach for performance driving. You are leaving significant performance on the table. The Miata ND offers 3 stability control states that most owners never fully explore. Full DSC on is the factory default that most owners use for street driving. DSC off is the mode most owners select for track and autocross. DSC Sport is the mode almost nobody knows exists. DSC Sport reduces the intervention threshold of the stability control system without eliminating it. The system allows significantly more yaw rotation before intervening than the full-on mode. It intervenes before a full-on spin event rather than allowing the complete rotation that DSC off permits. At autocross, DSC Sport allows the rotational handling balance that makes the Miata quick through corners while preventing the spin events that DSC off allows in the hands of developing drivers. Access DSC Sport through a specific button sequence rather than a menu. Press the DSC button once and release. The system transitions from full DSC to DSC Sport. Press and hold for 5 seconds to reach full DSC off. A Miata club owner from Phoenix named Michael had been running full DSC off at every autocross event for 2 seasons before a more experienced driver in the same car class told him about DSC Sport. His lap times improved by an average of 1.4 seconds per lap after switching to DSC Sport at the same venue on the same day. 1.4 seconds per lap from a button press that cost $0 and took 3 seconds to execute. His previous approach had been costing him 1.4 seconds per lap, based on advice he had read in a forum post that was written for a different skill level. The dealer that sold him the car had demonstrated full DSC on and DSC off during the handover test drive. DSC Sport was never mentioned. Have you ever been running your Miata with DSC completely off when DSC Sport would have been faster? Drop your autocross experience in the comments and tell us whether DSC Sport changes your next event. The next feature is one that most Miata owners pay a dealer to diagnose when the resolution costs nothing and requires only a steering wheel button sequence that the owner's manual documents clearly. Number 9. The TPMS recalibration that replaces a $100 diagnostic. You have new tires fitted on your Miata. You drive away. The TPMS warning light appears within 3 miles. You call the dealer. They tell you to bring it in for a sensor diagnostic. The diagnostic fee is $95. The cause is a TPMS system that requires recalibration after any change in the tire configuration. The recalibration procedure on the Miata ND requires inflating all 4 tires to the correct pressure specified on the door jam sticker, and then initiating the calibration sequence through the vehicle settings menu. The total time required is 60 seconds. The tools required are a tire pressure gauge and the steering wheel controls you already use every day. The procedure is documented in the owner's manual under the tire section. A Miata Sport owner from Denver named Rachel paid $95 for a TPMS diagnostic after new summer tires produced a continuous warning light. The technician performed the calibration procedure and returned the vehicle. The procedure that cost $95 at the dealership takes 60 seconds in any driveway with a tire gauge. Rachel has performed the recalibration herself at every subsequent tire change. Her TPMS diagnostic fees since learning the procedure, $0. The dealer's fee for performing a 60-second owner's manual procedure, $95 per occurrence. The next feature is one that most Miata owners have never intentionally used, and that changes the car's safety profile in a specific emergency scenario that happens without warning. Number 8, the emergency lane. Departure protection mode that stays active, without annoying you. You drive your Miata on a coastal road with continuous curves and no lane markings. The lane keeping assist makes constant corrections. You find it so intrusive that you disable the system. You have just removed the emergency departure protection that the system provides on motorways and straight roads in a misguided attempt to eliminate the intrusive corrections on winding roads. The Miata's lane departure warning system has 2 independently configurable operating states. The standard correction mode applies steering nudges when the vehicle drifts toward a lane marking. The warning-only mode activates audible and visual alerts without applying any steering correction. Switching to warning-only mode eliminates the intrusive corrections on winding roads while retaining the audible alert that warns of genuine unintended departures. Access the driver assistance menu through the infotainment settings. Navigate to lane departure. Switch from correction to warning-only mode. A Miata RF owner from San Francisco named Lisa had disabled lane departure entirely at 22,000 miles after finding it intrusive on Highway 1. She drove for 14 months with 0 lane departure protection. An independent safety analysis of her regular driving route identified 3 locations where unintentional drift events are statistically common at night. The warning-only mode that would have retained her protection was in the same menu she had used to disable the system completely. Her dealer had never explained the 2-mode configuration. The next feature saves Miata owners money on the most common consumable replacement on the platform, and most owners are paying full price for a service that a single settings check makes unnecessary. Number 7, the brake pad. Wear indicator. Configuration that eliminates unnecessary replacements. You bring your Miata in for a service. The advisor tells you the brake pads are at 30% and recommends replacement. The replacement quote is $340 for all 4 corners. You authorize it because 30% sounds dangerously low. 30% is not dangerously low. It represents approximately 8,000 to 12,000 additional miles of service life, depending on your driving profile. The Miata's brake pad wear indicator system alerts the driver through an audible scraping noise when the wear indicator contacts the rotor surface. This contact occurs at the minimum safe pad thickness that Mazda's brake engineers established as the replacement threshold. Until that indicator sounds, the pads have remaining service life. A service advisor who recommends pad replacement at 30% remaining without an audible indicator is making a revenue recommendation. The brake industry profit model depends on replacement at visual inspection rather than at the engineering threshold. Visual estimation of 30% remaining produces significant service revenue ahead of the actual replacement requirement. If you have been replacing Miata brake pads based on a service advisor's visual estimate rather than the wear indicator, smash that like button right now. A Miata club owner from Seattle named Thomas paid $340 for a front brake pad replacement at 32% remaining at 41,000 miles after a dealer service recommendation. His independent mechanic reviewed the replacement documentation at the following service and estimated the pads had between 6,000 and 9,000 miles of remaining service life at the time of replacement. Thomas had paid $340 to replace pads that had not reached their replacement threshold. He now drives until the wear indicator sounds. His subsequent pad replacement at 67,000 miles was at the correct threshold. The pads had lasted 26,000 miles past the point where the dealer had recommended the previous replacement. The next feature is one that most Miata owners encounter as a dashboard warning and dismiss as a sensor fault when it is actually the vehicle providing specific actionable information about a condition that deteriorates rapidly if left unaddressed. Number 6. The oil pressure. Display that predicts problems before they become repairs. You are at a traffic light. A warning appears briefly on the instrument cluster. It disappears when you pull away. You assume it was a sensor glitch. You drive for 3 more weeks. The warning appears again. This time, it stays. You are now looking at a repair bill that was preventable 3 weeks ago when the first warning appeared. The Miata's oil pressure monitoring system displays real-time oil pressure data through the vehicle information menu accessible via the steering wheel controls. This display shows the actual oil pressure reading rather than the binary warning or not indicator that most drivers assume is the only feedback the system provides. Checking the oil pressure display at idle after a cold start and comparing it to the pressure at warm idle identifies developing oil pressure issues before they progress to the warning threshold that illuminates the dashboard lamp. A healthy Skyactiv G engine at warm idle shows oil pressure between 25 and 35 psi. Pressure consistently below 20 psi at warm idle indicates a developing condition requiring investigation. The dashboard warning lamp activates below 10 psi, which is already within the damage threshold for bearing surfaces. A Miata Sport owner from Nashville named Carol noticed a brief oil pressure warning at idle on 2 consecutive mornings and dismissed it as a sensor issue. She drove for 19 days before the warning became persistent. Her independent mechanic identified oil pump wear producing intermittent low pressure at idle. The repair at the point of persistent warning, $1,080 for oil pump replacement. The repair at the point of the first brief warning 3 weeks earlier, $420 for oil pump inspection and preventive replacement before failure. 19 days of dismissing a brief warning cost Carol $660 additional. The oil pressure display that would have shown her the developing low pressure trend had been in her vehicle information menu since purchase. Her dealer had never demonstrated it. The next feature is one that most Miata owners have configured incorrectly since the day of purchase, and that is producing a driving characteristic they have accepted as normal when it is actually a configuration issue with a 30-second correction. Number 5. The steering weight. Calibration that most owners set. Once and never revisit, you bought the Miata for the steering feel. It was the primary reason you chose this car over every other roadster on the market. You drove it for 3 months and adjusted to the steering weight. You never revisited the steering weight setting because you assumed the factory default was the correct calibration. The factory default steering weight on the Miata ND is set to the normal calibration. The Sport calibration increases steering weight and feedback intensity in a way that transforms the connection between your hands and the front contact patch. The Sport calibration does not make the steering heavier in a fatiguing way. It makes the feedback richer and the precision of small inputs more apparent. The difference between normal and Sport calibration is the difference between a car that communicates and a car that narrates. Access the steering weight settings through the Vehicle Dynamics menu. Select Sport. Drive your regular route. A Miata RF owner from Chicago named Jennifer had been driving her 2020 Miata RF for 26 months at the normal steering calibration because the dealer had set up the vehicle at delivery with normal mode, and she had assumed it was the correct configuration for street driving. A passenger who owned a club trim mentioned the sport calibration on a Sunday drive. Jennifer changed the setting in the passenger seat while stopped at a viewpoint. She describes the first corner after the change as the moment she understood what the Miata was actually designed to feel like. 26 months of reduced steering feedback that the sport calibration had been available to correct at any moment. $0 to change, zero disclosure at delivery. The Miata's most celebrated characteristic, its steering feel, was not fully delivered to Jennifer until a passenger mentioned a setting the dealer never did. Have you ever discovered a setting in your Miata that changed how the car drove and wondered why the dealer never mentioned it? Drop the setting and how long you drove without it in the comments. The next feature involves the convertible top and a protection mechanism that most Miata owners have been bypassing every single time they park outdoors. Number 4. The tonneau cover, tension setting that protects the soft top from UV degradation. You park the Miata outdoors. The soft top is raised. The sun beats down on the fabric for 8 hours. You have been parking this way for 3 years. The fabric has begun showing UV-related stiffening at the fold lines. A soft top replacement on a Miata ND costs between $1,200 and $1,800, including labor at a Mazda dealer. The UV degradation that produces premature soft top replacement is concentrated at the fold lines because the fabric at the fold points is under tension from the top's internal structure. Fabric under tension degrades faster under UV exposure than fabric in a relaxed state. The Miata soft top has a tension adjustment that can be set to a reduced tension state when the top is raised but the vehicle is parked stationary. The reduced tension state releases the structural load from the fold lines without changing the top's weather sealing or functional performance. Parking with the reduced tension setting engaged across the fabric's first 3 years of UV exposure measurably extends the service life of the fold areas. The adjustment procedure is in the owner's manual convertible top section that most Miata owners have never opened. A Miata Sport owner from Los Angeles named Brian replaced his soft top at 61,000 miles, and after fold line cracking produced a weather seal failure. The replacement cost $1,400 at his dealer. His dealer had never mentioned the tension adjustment that reduces fold line UV stress during outdoor parking. The next Miata he purchased, he has been parking with the reduced tension setting since the first week of ownership. He describes the fabric at 58,000 miles on his current top as showing no visible fold line stress. The fabric care that costs $0 per parking event has prevented the $1,400 replacement that his previous top required. The next feature is one that most Miata owners encounter at the worst possible time, and that costs them a dealer visit that the owner's manual prevents entirely. Number 3. The battery conditioning drive that prevents idle stop system failure. You start the Miata on a cold Monday morning. The idle stop system warning light is illuminated. The system has deactivated. You call the dealer. They recommend a battery diagnostic appointment at $110. The cause is a supplemental battery that powers the idle stop system and that requires periodic conditioning to maintain adequate voltage. The conditioning procedure is a 30-minute highway drive at speeds above 50 miles per hour. The drive charges the supplemental battery to full capacity through the alternator. After the conditioning drive, the idle stop system reactivates without any dealer visit or diagnostic fee. The procedure is documented in the owner's manual idle stop system section. A Miata Sport owner from Boston named Michael paid $110 for a dealer diagnostic appointment that identified low supplemental battery voltage. The technician performed a highway drive and returned the vehicle with the idle stop system functioning correctly. Michael was charged for the diagnostic. The highway drive that resolved the issue is the conditioning procedure documented in his owner's manual. Michael now performs a monthly 30-minute highway drive specifically for supplemental battery conditioning. His idle stop diagnostic fees since adopting this routine? $0. A monthly 30-minute drive on a Miata. Most owners call that a Tuesday evening. The dealer calls it a $110 diagnostic when they let the conditioning lapse. The next and final feature is the one that Miata track day instructors have been using for years and that the dealer has the strongest financial reason to ensure you never discover. Number 2. The oil temperature display that prevents the most expensive SkyActiv failure mode. You arrive at a track day, you complete your first session at 8/10 effort, you return to the paddock, you immediately shut the engine off because the session ended and the next group is ready to go. You have just done significant damage to the turbocharger on a turbocharged variant or to the oil pump on a naturally aspirated SkyActiv G in the worst possible way. The oil temperature display accessible through the Vehicle Information menu shows the actual engine oil temperature in real time. At the end of a hard driving session, the oil temperature on a Skyactiv G can reach between 240 and 270 degrees Fahrenheit. At these temperatures, the oil is carrying significant heat load from the bearings, the VVT system, and the combustion chamber oil jets. Shutting the engine off while oil temperature is above 200 degrees Fahrenheit stops the oil pump. The heat already in the bearings and combustion chamber continues radiating into the oil passages. The oil in those passages, no longer circulating, sits at elevated temperature without the cooling provided by circulation. Oil that sits at elevated temperature without circulation experiences accelerated oxidation. Oxidized oil forms varnish deposits at the precise bearing and VVT surfaces where cooling was most needed. The oil temperature display allows the driver to monitor the temperature drop during a cool-down idle before shutdown. Shut down when the oil temperature display shows below 180 degrees Fahrenheit. The cool-down idle required varies from 2 to 6 minutes, depending on session intensity and ambient temperature. A Miata Club Track Day regular from Dallas named Carol had been shutting down immediately after every session for 2 seasons, before a more experienced driver noticed her immediately turning the key off on returning to the paddock. Carol began using the oil temperature display to manage her cool-down idle. At her next annual inspection, her mechanic noted significantly reduced VVT passage varnish accumulation compared to the previous year's inspection. The VVT cleaning service she had paid $560 for at the previous inspection was not required at the current one. $0 saved by a 2 to 6 minute cool-down. Idle guided by a display the vehicle already had. The final feature is the one the dealer is most invested in, you never finding because it eliminates the most consistent service revenue line that the Miata platform generates. Number 1. The Skyactiv Oil Life Monitor protocol that keeps Miata engines past 200,000 miles. You collect your Miata from the dealership. The service advisor hands you a recommended service schedule. It says oil every 5,000 miles. You follow it for years. You believe you are maintaining your engine correctly. You are following a schedule designed for a theoretical average driver in a theoretical average climate. You are not average. You are a Miata owner. Your driving profile is specific. Your climate is specific. Your track day frequency is specific. And none of those specifics appear on the 5,000-mile sticker the dealer printed to match their service booking calendar. The Skyactiv G engine's oil life monitor tracks every variable that determines actual oil condition. Engine load, temperature cycling, cold start frequency, track day heat events. It calculates remaining oil life based on what your specific oil has actually experienced. A Miata used for weekend drives in a warm climate may have 40% oil life remaining at 5,000 miles. A Miata used for track days may have depleted oil life at 2,500 miles after a single hard session. The monitor knows the difference. The sticker does not. Miata track day instructors who consistently reach 200,000 miles on their engines share one documented practice. They follow the oil life monitor rather than a fixed interval. They add a full oil change after any track day regardless of the monitor reading, because track day heat events accelerate oil degradation beyond what the monitor's road use algorithm accounts for. They check the oil temperature display to manage cool-down idle time. They have never paid for a VVT cleaning service because the correct oil at the correct interval has prevented the accumulation that makes that service necessary. The 5,000-mile sticker is where the dealer's oil change revenue lives. The oil life monitor is where your engine's 200,000-mile survival lives. You now have both pieces of information. The choice between them is the choice between your engine's longevity and your dealer's booking calendar. Hey, thanks for watching. If this video just revealed Miata features that have been sitting unused since the day you drove off the lot, let us know in the comments which feature surprised you most. Click on the video on the left to see more hidden car secrets the industry wouldn't, and if you do not want to miss more Miata-specific guides that expose what the dealer and service industry profit from you never knowing, hit that subscribe button right now.